I'm called Ryan. I'm 39 years old, and I believed I'd experienced all forms of affection until my spouse showed me the face of apathy. We'd shared a marriage for 8 years. Not flawless, not turbulent, just consistent. The sort of bond that appeared calm to outsiders, but seemed like hush within. It began with minor details, reduced messages throughout the day, briefer farewells at night, extended gaps in our dialogues. I recall being seated opposite her one night, each of us feigning interest in a culinary program. The television's shine bounced off her features, yet she wasn't present. Not truly. She existed somewhere beyond her personal barriers, grinning at an unseen element. When I inquired, "Is anything amiss?" she grinned weakly and replied, "No, I'm simply exhausted." That term exhausted turned into her defense. Exhausted following her job, exhausted after meals, exhausted from clarifying the initial I convinced myself it was pressure. All couples encounter a dip. I prepared meals more often, assisted with household tasks, attempted to ease her burden. Yet striving seems like disturbance when the other individual has already muted the sound. A fortnight went by, then 3. The separation didn't expand. It accumulated like particles. You ceased observing. We hardly made contact, hardly conversed. The mattress seemed overly spacious, the atmosphere too sparse. One evening I discovered her seated on the veranda, browsing her device, her expression illuminated by that gentle azure radiance. She appeared serene in a manner she hadn't appeared near me in many months. I remained there observing her digits glide across the display, and an inner voice murmured, "She's departed already." But I remained silent. I avoided seeming envious or unsure. That's how males forfeit respect, by expressing concern too vocally. Rather, I withdrew internally. Visited the fitness center sooner, lingered outside longer, labored extended shifts. The residence transformed into a transit hub, a spot to pause between journeys, not to dwell. A colleague of mine, Matt, observed I was more reserved at the office. He questioned if all was well. I informed him it was merely a difficult phase. He assented and stated, "Just ensure it's a phase and not a habit." I lacked the courage to admit it had evolved into both. By the 5th week, she ceased feigning. When I'd arrive home, she wouldn't glance upward from her device. Meals weren't communal anymore. She'd consumed already or lacked appetite. The cooler held numerous delivery boxes from venues I didn't identify. I recall one Sunday dawn. It was luminous, chilly, and unusually hushed. I brewed coffee, filled a mug for her, and set it on the surface next to her. She didn't glance upward. I mentioned, "We haven't conversed meaningfully in some time." She responded, continuing to browse. "We've conversed." "Not truly," she exhaled, set the device aside, and at last gazed at me. Her gaze wasn't furious, it was aloof. "Ryan," she uttered gently. "This isn't separation," I creased my brow. "Then what is it?" She inhaled deeply, as if unleashing years of control. "It's liberation. I'm not aiming to wound you. I simply sense liberation. Liberation. That term struck more forcefully than any slur might have. Liberation from what? From me, from the existence we constructed. She rose, her expression composed, her tone firm. "I'm not departing today. I simply refused to feign further." I assented, though I didn't comprehend. I desired to yell, to require justifications, to extract a rationale from her, but all I produced was quiet. That evening I reclined next to her, each of us oriented toward opposing surfaces, and it dawned on me how conclusive quiet can seem. You don't require doors banging or luggage prepared. Occasionally departing occurs one subdued exhale at a time. I didn't rest. I reflected on every instance, every overlooked message, every courteous grin, every occasion she declared, "I'm okay." It all aligned like an admission. By dawn, the dwelling seemed unfamiliar. The daylight no longer penetrated the edges anymore. She remained there in body. But the lady I'd wedded had vanished, and in that vacant calm I grasped something agonizing. She hadn't altered suddenly. I had merely at last widened my vision. The following several days elapsed like mist. We navigated around one another as if the space between us were crystal, see-through, yet unbreachable. I attempted another discussion, but it resembled speaking to an individual submerged. Every utterance I made emerged warped. Once I queried, "Are you involved with another?" She didn't appear insulted, merely lifted her shoulders. "No, I'm simply finished sensing confined." "Confined?" I echoed. "In what?" "In obligations," she murmured softly. "In habits, in us." That's when it struck me. She wasn't pursuing a newcomer. She was fleeing the mundane. The affection that had once thrilled her now wearied her. The steadiness I viewed as solace seemed like an enclosure to her. I wish to repair it to contend that every partnership turns mundane ultimately. But how do you negotiate with someone who's already reconciled with departing? So I halted attempting. The quiet between us altered tone. It wasn't strain anymore. It was resignation. She passed more hours away from the home. Extended strolls, nighttime excursions, conversations that concluded with minor, cautious chuckles. One night I observed her in the sitting area assembling a compact travel sack. Heading anywhere? I questioned. She halted, eyed the sack as if uncertain whether to deceive, just remaining with my sibling for a while. I assented gradually. Do you wish for me to utter something? She moved her head side to side. I don't desire a commotion. You won't receive one. She closed the sack and draped it across her arm. For a moment her gaze tenderized like she nearly wished to clarify, but she didn't. She merely murmured, I require room to inhale. I stated, then inhale elsewhere. She stilled, not in rage and astonishment. She wasn't anticipating composure. She was ready for pleading, for remorse, for pursuit, but not for serene release. Ryan, she began, I didn't intend I lifted a palm. You declared you're liberated. Liberation doesn't include access privileges. Her mouth opened like she wished to object. But the terms never materialized. She merely assented once gradually, as if confirming the gap between us with consent. And then she departed. No bang, no sobs, no dramatic conclusion, just the gentle noise of the door catch. That small snap that signifies the close of something once boundless. For a few days, the quiet seemed like demise. The dwelling reverberated every noise. The cooler's drone, the clock's tick, the squeak of the corridor. Everything evoked her non-presence, even the items she never handled. But something altered after the third morning. I arose, prepared coffee for myself, and recognized how much more tranquil the atmosphere seemed. There was sorrow, certainly, but also lucidity, a form of cerebral calm I hadn't experienced in many months. I considered contacting her, not to regain her, but to appreciate her for being truthful enough to exit instead of feigning longer. But I didn't contact. Some appreciation resides solely in reflection. A week afterward, I encountered her acquaintance Claire at the market. She appeared startled to encounter me. She informed me, you expelled her. Claire stated. I grinned weakly. I didn't expel her. I simply ceased propping the entrance ajar. Claire didn't know how to reply. Individuals seldom do when serenity doesn't resemble vulnerability. That evening, I rested on the identical veranda where she once browsed her device. The identical gentle azure shined from my personal display, illuminating my palms. Only this occasion the hush wasn't vacant. It was acquired. I pondered everything she mentioned about liberation, separation, obligations. Perhaps she was correct. Perhaps affection grows dull when it ceases developing. But I also understood this. Liberation isn't about abandoning those who cherish you. It's about being truthful enough to remain faithful to your sensations. She selected her form of truthfulness. I selected mine. It's odd, though, when you ultimately cease struggling for someone who doesn't wish to be struggled for. Serenity doesn't arrive with explosions. It comes gradually like sunrise. Subdued, gentle, but irrefutable. I began reconstructing my existence fragment by fragment. Renewed ties with companions. Embarked on lengthy rides without endpoints. Rediscovered how hush can mend rather than harm. Occasionally individuals inquire if I'd accept her return if she came back. I don't even require reflection. No, because she wasn't incorrect for desiring liberation. She was incorrect for mistaking separation for progress. And I wasn't harsh for releasing her. I was simply finished pleading for companionship from someone who had already departed in her soul. Affection doesn't always conclude with disloyalty or fury. Sometimes it concludes with a murmur that ultimately instructs you how to heed. And when she declared, I'm liberated, I believed I was forfeiting something.